Shalom Chavrim, I'm Steve Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. You know, guys, I apologize for being a little bit late. Still quite have not got used to this time frame here. I was looking at this news video here on Twitter, and this is, I'm going to play the video for you, all right? This is actually Prime Minister Netanyahu. He is meeting with a man here that is a wounded soldier from the battlefield inside of Syria. He is one of the militants fighting against the Assad government. It's what Prime Minister Netanyahu says here in Hebrew that kind of really caught my attention, and they don't translate it, but I'm going to first play you what is said in here, and then I want to discuss with you what the Prime Minister is actually saying here in Hebrew to this man here. So let's play it. Let me see if I can turn this up where you can hear the part in English. I mean, this is very, very important, guys. I'll tell you what I'll do, though, is I'll translate for you. Whoop, where did I go with this here? Is that it? Oh, yeah, it's actually in a response on here is what it was. Someone had made a response. I saw where someone had posted this particular link here. The Syrian army captured Israeli weapons from ISIS and Hayar al-Aswad in the south of Damascus. All right, and normally I don't bring these types of information out very often because, you know, things could be staged. Not to say that I don't believe it. I'm just saying things could be staged. All right, and but as I scrolled down real quick just to see what was some of the responses in here, someone had actually posted this particular news broadcast right here, and this is what I want to focus on with you. This is the Prime Minister of Israel meeting with one of these wounded soldiers there that have been fighting inside of Syria. All right, now as he speaks to this man right here, in fact, it just so happens I have it on the very part that's really troubling to me. Tahaya barit gamatem. Okay, he's saying there's going to be a covenant. There's going to be an alliance. You can translate it either way. You know, tahaya, there will be. Okay, barit. Okay, there will be a covenant, or you can translate it. There will be an alliance. And so he says gamatem. You know, which is also to you, you know, so the covenant will be with those that are fighting. I mean, this is mind-boggling to me what the Prime Minister is saying. You know, let me just back up just a little bit more right here. He says, thank you. He's saying thank you to them, but it's not just him, but to the fighters. All right. So Hebrew's a little bit different type of language than what we have in English there. All right, but again, he's speaking about this covenant right here, and he's talking about returning, and of course he's very grateful to this man. The man's name there is let's see, Salamatach. I think is how you pronounce his name. It's an Arabic guy there who is fighting in the resistance movement. All right, so we know that the Israeli government has been providing medical aid, humanitarian aid to the fighters there that are fighting against Bashar al-Assad's forces there. And of course, I would not be opposed to that. And I know that a lot of the Syrian people that watch this would probably say, Steve, I can't believe you would say that. No, I'm for humanitarianism to begin with. But in my opinion, if you're doing it for humanitarian purposes, you should also be treating the Syrian army as well, and not just the ruthless Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, who behead children, terrorists that are fighting in this country. But what the Prime Minister says to this guy. oh my God. I mean, he's clearly, oh, wait a minute, there's one part I didn't catch right there. Okay, Beyond show. Oh my gosh. This is unreal. I mean, it's like the prime minister is giving away what they are doing. Israel has made a covenant with a block of nations, and it's right here in the very video here, and no one seems to pay attention. Now, let me play with what it said here, because in this newscast, wherever it's at, it's in the English language there. They're talking about Israel has been supporting these groups here medically as well as with weapons too. Listen to this.
Kamal al-Labwani, who lives in exile in Turkey, said anti-government forces in Syria see Israel as a friend. He added that militants fighting Bashar al-Assad will never forget what he called Tel Aviv's humanitarian support. Al-Labwani is scheduled to meet Israeli authorities during his trip. Israel has openly voiced support for the Syrian militants on many occasions. The Syrian army has also repeatedly seized huge quantities of Israeli-made weapons and advanced military equipment in the hands of foreign-backed militants inside Syria.
You guys hear this? I mean, you know, I've known from the beginning that Israel has been involved in the humanitarian efforts there. But I think the most provocative part was when Ms. Livni actually was on RT News, and they were asking her, you know, if you're helping Al-Qaeda and al-Nusra with humanitarian medical care from the war-torn region, what about Syrian soldiers? And Ms. Livni she like to blow a fuse. She says, I cannot even believe you would ask that question. She said, of course we would not. And of course, the RT host, she made the most obvious response to it. She says, I thought you were doing this for humanitarian reasons. If you're doing it for humanitarian reasons, what difference does it make where the soldier is from? All right. And so, you know, it was a very good answer. And, you know, but, you know, of course it was not. And now that I'm seeing what's being said here in the beginning to this man that is in exile in Turkey right now, Prime Minister Netanyahu is telling him there's going to be a covenant. You know, a covenant. You know, this is what's interesting. So many people I know, especially in the Christian circle, say, brother, when do you think there's going to be a 7-year covenant? I don't know about the timing of any covenants, but the prime minister just said to a man that is fighting, the resistance fighting, whether he was with Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, I have no idea, but he just said to him, there is going to be a covenant. There is going to be a, as he put it, let me get to the right spot right here. Well, no, he's saying here, thank you to you, thank you to all of them, in other words, is what he's saying. And let me see if it's right here. Yeah, right here. Tahaya barit gam atem. There's going to be a covenant. Also, notice when it says here, gam atem, that is also with them. They're going to be included in this covenant. And remember when Trump talked about, you know, that Netanyahu brings it up at the meeting there when they're first meeting, I think in Washington or wherever it was, and they're having their press conference, and Netanyahu brings up about this regional Middle Eastern countries there that are working together to bring about a peace solution for Israel, and it could be just a one-state solution. Oh my God. You know, I have to agree with Siman Tov. He said the Lord revealed to him that they had made a covenant with death and hell. That's not the Israeli people. That's the Israeli government. That is the Vatican puppets that are inside the government. You know, and I get people saying to me, Brother Steve, you know, you've changed. You've changed. I have always stood for Israel. Always, and I always will. But I will not stand And from the very beginning of this ministry, I've always exposed Rome's involvement in trying to overtake this nation. Even the Mekodeshet that was in Israel, I'm standing there in Israel exposing it, and boy, did we ever make them angry. The Mekodeshet in Hebrew literally means to engage, to make an engagement. What is the Pope of Rome doing? He puts this thing together to try to bring together the Christians, Jews, and the Muslims. And by the way, it's not the Christians, it's the Catholics, the Jews, and the Muslims. The Pope makes it very clear who it is. All right? This is totally disgusting what's happening. Shimon Peres sold the country out, sold every Jew in Israel out. Let me remind you guys of something, because, this is not being against Israel. This is standing up for the Jewish people. But let's just look at this. Okay, Mount Zion. Okay, Orthodox. Protest. Pope. All right, let's go to the images just for a reminder of what happened there. You remember these pictures right here? You guys remember that? Now, the Israeli government was promoting, and without any referendum with the people, gave Mount Zion over to the Rome, to the Vatican. Do you see the people for it? No. Pope, stay in Rome. King David's tomb belongs to the Jewish people. The religious people in Israel are a thorn in the flesh to this movement of the Israeli government working with this cabal in the background. I mean, it's just terrible. And, I love you guys as well. God bless you, Brother Matt. I'm very troubled at what's happening. Okay, so let's go over here. Times of Israel. Ex-Mossad chief says Netanyahu's show on Iran had nothing new. The ex-Mossad chief, right? Danny Yotam, also a former labor lawmaker, urges U.S. not to leave nuclear deal and fix it instead. All right, wait, I'm sorry. Is there somebody else that has a higher authority that's telling you this stuff, that knows everything about the Israeli government, and that what we're doing is the best thing that could be done? I don't think that necessarily that the nuclear deal that was done with Iran was the best way to go either. But nonetheless, the deal is there, and I have to agree with Danny Yotam. All right? Don't leave the nuclear deal. Just fix it. Try to work with these people. All right? After all, as I said to you, it's not like that they're trying to develop a nuclear program. Sure, they probably are. They already have nuclear weapons. If that defecting scientist that Phil Kirshner had on is even correct, and let me see. I don't know. I got a couple of messages here. Let me just see if Phil was one of these. That's not what I'm looking for there. No, Phil hasn't actually written me back yet. I don't know where Phil's at. But the former chief of Israel's Mossad spy agency said Wednesday that the documents revealed by Prime Minister Netanyahu in prime-time television press conference this week contain no new information about Iran's atomic program, and that the United States should fix the nuclear accord rather than leave it. The nuclear program files do not have a smoking gun because it smoked a long time ago, he said. All right. There's your inside source. You need an inside source from Israel? Well, there he is. Times of Israel. The man's right there. He knows what he's talking about. It's kind of like, Prime Minister Netanyahu. He's been saying this since 1992. Iran's making nuclear weapons. Iran's making nuclear weapons. No, I don't want Iran having nuclear weapons. But if we've already got a scientist that defected from there that was with the program and said that they actually created 6 atomic bombs like those that were dropped on Japan, then what are we saying all this for? All right. Yes, Israel has a right to defend itself. I agree with that. And believe me, Iran knows that the United States is backing Israel all the way. And Iran, even though they are allies with Russia, they also know that Russia is an ally with Israel and a very strong relationship with Israel that could go in the opposite favor for Iran. Because you have to remember, when it comes to President Putin, Putin always looks at the national interest of Russia. And if he thinks it is better to keep in line with how would we say this here? If he thinks that it would be better to keep his relationship with Israel over Iran, he's going to take the Israeli relationship over Iran. And they have a very strong relationship, strong enough that Putin says to Syria, "You do not retaliate against Israel." I mean, that's pretty hardcore, especially when the Syrian forces are being bombed by the Israeli government, and for no good reason. I mean, this is let's face it. This jihadist group that Israel is backing will lob a mortar over into Israel so that Netanyahu's policy of no tolerance can be taken out against the person that's not guilty. That is not biblically correct. You know, here we are. Israel is supposed to be a nation that is founded on the Torah, the laws of God. And the law of God clearly says, you do not make your child pay for what your father does. All right? You do not take and punish someone else for something that someone else has done. And in this case here, when mortars are falling over the border because the terrorists that Israeli government is backing, and I like to say the Israeli government because it is not the Israeli people supporting these terrorists that are over in Syria. And in fact, there has been Israelis that have gone on big campaigns to raise up food and clothing for the Israeli children the Syrian children that have suffered from this war. Jeez. Come on. This is nonsense. It really is. You know, I mean, granted, again, Israel does have a right to defend itself. But my point that I'm looking at here, guys, this is not about defense. This is not about Israel defending itself. This is all about exactly what we just saw in this video right here. They are making a covenant. And those terrorists that are fighting inside of Syria are part of that covenant. You know, he tells them, you're going to be included in it. You know, I'm glad I actually took the time to listen to what the Prime Minister said there. You know, normally, you know, you kind of half listen, half don't listen, you know, because it's in Hebrew, and, you know, but if you pay attention, it's important to pay attention. Another one here as well. Walid here, 970721 on Twitter. He posted this video here, an interview with David Pollock, which is an American guy who speaks fluent Arabic. And if this is not a propaganda movement right here going on, he is there spreading the propaganda amongst the Arabic speakers, and the Arabic speakers don't even agree with him. And he's in there saying, who killed 500,000 Syrians? He says, using bombs and artillery, chlorine and sarin gas. And he'll say, it's not the jihadists, but he says, with the help of Iran and Hezbollah, it is the Syrian government. And then, of course, the host is trying to bring out about Yemen. And he's saying on there in Yemen, okay, yeah, maybe hundreds, but not 500,000. Oh, this is such a propaganda garbage. It's not hundreds that have been killed in Yemen by the Saudis and the U.S. supplied weapons there. It's been thousands and thousands of children in starvation and in a just a complete carpet bombing campaign by the Saudi government. You know, and I actually put Sarah Abdullah up here. She has her own Twitter page here. I thought she had a very interesting comment here. She put, so let me get this straight. 15 of the 19 hijackers on 9/11 were from Saudi Arabia, which fuels the ideology of Al-Qaeda. But it is Iran, which isn't involved in the attacks and is actually fighting terrorism in Syria, that must pay for the heinous crime. All right, now let me just see something here. I didn't actually look at the article here. So U.S. judge orders Iran to pay billions to families of 9/11 victims. You got to be kidding me. And to begin with, we know it's a conspiracy. We know the conspiracy theory is it was an inside job done to begin with. Why isn't the U.S. government paying for these families? After all, in order to get us into a war in the Middle East, our government sacrificed 2,000 lives. You know, I've not really talked about this before, but I have watched a lot of the evidence on this. And when I did law enforcement, photography was my specialty, analyzing these things. That was something that I did. That is too obvious who was involved. And then Mossad agents are arrested by the U.S. as they're filming all of this. Kind of like what you've seen over there in Syria, where this guy is snickering as he films the bombing that's happening there, where it is actually, you know, and I know somebody did make a comment and said, you know, there were already bombs being dropped. That's probably why I was filming. Okay, I'll give credit for that. You're right. That could have been the case. There were already bombs being dropped. I just thought it was kind of odd that when the bunker buster was dropped, he happened to just find that funny, and it just so happens to be that that's the main filming that he was doing. I just thought it was kind of odd. Could be a coincidence, though. And like you said, it could be because there was already bombs being dropped, because yes, there were a lot of other bombs being dropped as well, that he just happened to catch that one there. You know, his angle and positioning, though, is very interesting. So, yeah, judge is ordering the Iran to pay it. Let's just say they really did do it, these Saudis. Which, by the way, the Saudis are definitely involved regardless of how you do it, because the Saudis use their people to stage it. And by the way, how many Qurans was this one guy that was the Saudi guy that was when he carried all these Qurans with him? Interesting. Oh, by the way, guys, I don't have the rabbit somewhere running around here. Everybody always asks about him. By the way, best paper shredder you could ever have is a rabbit. And if he can't eat it fast enough, get you 2 or 3 of them. And he'll also shred documents that you don't want shredded as well. Just throw that in there. In closing here, I want to also bring up something here that may not really matter from the outside, but I want you to pay attention to Condoleezza Rice. I got her blocked off with the light. I moved the light. I can't ever get this lighting situation set right. Condoleezza Rice backs Trump's possible withdrawal from Iran deal. Okay? She says she would have never even signed it. That's not really the issue, though. Condoleezza Rice is surely popping up in the spotlight a lot. I have a feeling she's going to make a bid for the White House. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I can't help but think that. By the way, we're going to have to rename this video. When I was coming on, I did not anticipate that I was going, I had everything put together, and then I came across this issue here with what the Prime Minister of Israel was saying to this Al-Qaeda guy here. I don't know if he's Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, which jihadist group he was fighting for there. But to see that the Prime Minister says there's going to be a covenant. And he's talking to one of the terrorists, and they're making the covenant with the terrorists. I'm going to look at that scripture that Brother Saman Tov has talked about. In fact, Brother Saman, if you're watching this broadcast here tonight, but you're probably not watching it live because I know you probably go to bed a little bit earlier. Saman lives in Israel there. God bless you, my brother. There it is. They've made a covenant with death and hell. And as he said, Simon says, Netanyahu is the man. He said he will be the one that brings the calamity upon Israel that will kill 2/3 of the people. He's looking at that one prophecy never been fulfilled. I'm Steve Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Troubling, troubling, troubling. Don't forget to thumbs up the video tonight, guys, and let's share this. It is a very important message. I did not title it right. I will change the title on this because that is the most provocative news I have seen as of yet. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live. And by the way, I'm sure the naysayers that let me tell you something. Real quick, I want to just throw this thought in here. When you have a channel that is dedicated to spreading the mainstream media, it's an alternative media site, and you have that channel that is there to try to counteract everything that we say at Israeli News Live, don't you think that's just a little bit obvious that that channel has been set up to try to counteract the impact that we have when someone is trying to tell you the truth? You know, isn't it interesting that on our channel there, YouTube blocks us in every way possible? They mess with the comments. You guys are trying to leave comments. Half the time, I can't even see what's going on with them. You guys can't get notifications. I mean, some of you do. But then the channels that are supposedly know everything about what's going on in the Middle East, they just sail right through. Oh, they train FEMA too. Don't forget, FEMA's got a plan for you Christians. Yes. And we have Israelis, not one, there's a lot of them, I'm sure, that have been training FEMA on how to deal with the terrorists in your nation. What was it? Was it under Obama where he said that Christians were considered terrorists? Like we're on the high rank of a list of terrorists? And yet we're gullible enough to support such nonsense. What does the scripture say? If the blind lead the blind, they both fall in the ditch. Well, I tell you what, I don't want to see anybody to be blind. And I will tell you something, and I say it in very sincerity. You know, my mother was totally blind, not spiritually, but I'm talking about physically blind. She couldn't see no more than what the black is on my TV screen behind me there on the outside, what you guys see there. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me audibly one day and said, pray for your mother's eyes. And I prayed for my mother that day with tears streaming down my face, not even knowing how to even say I couldn't even say the words hardly. I was crying so hard, you know, when he spoke to me like that. And I said, Lord, I said, my mother needs to be able to see. My mother got 20/20 vision the same day. And so we're here on Israeli News Live trying to open the eyes spiritually. And the same God that spoke to me, and that's just one of many times. I never even tell people. I don't go into the things that I see in my life and the things that go on and the things that God does, because I don't believe in building a ministry off of supernatural things. But I will tell you something. The same God that spoke to my heart, that told me to pray for my mother's eyes and she got 20/20 vision, is the same God that leads me to try to help you guys to see what is going on in the world today and how it relates to biblical prophecy. That same God is the very God that showed me what would happen with Isaiah, that spoke to me in my heart about Damascus and what would happen, and how that we do this because we are not mindful of our rock. Let's think about it, guys. You know, I realize prophecy is going to be fulfilled, okay? I get it. I know that Damascus is going to be destroyed. But God makes it clear. It's because we have forgotten the God of our salvation, and we are not mindful of our rock. Stephen Benoon with Israeli News Live. Very troubling. What has Netanyahu done? Is he setting the stage for a covenant? And which covenant will that be biblically? I'll begin to examine this more and more so we can share that with you here on Israeli News Live. Erev Tov.